This is where it all began. The story of Candyman.
DaCosta's Candyman is both a sequel and a relaunch. While it pays homage to the original films, it also breaks from the trends they established and builds to a thrilling conclusion that feels both unexpected yet completely fitting. Still, you'd be forgiven for finding the film's climax complicated and maybe even kind of confusing, especially given the surprising way it sets in motion. The film is far from straightforward, but the way its thematic pieces fall in place results not only in a great ending, but also a great new beginning for the Candyman series.
What's Candyman?
For me, Candyman was a guy named Sherman Fields. He had a hook for a hand. Neighborhood character used to stand out there and hand out sweets to us when I was a kid.
Slasher movies are no stranger to last-minute villain reveals, and Colman Domingo's Burke is a sure candidate, especially given his eerie entrance and his in-depth knowledge of Candyman. Now, towards the end of the film, he finds Abdul-Mateen II's Anthony McCoy and decides to turn him into a version of Candyman in full view of his girlfriend Brianna, who's played by Tiana Paris. Now, he saws off Anthony's arm, replacing it with a meat hook, and dresses him up in a familiar brown coat before calling the police. However, his reasons aren't as simple as bloodlust or cult-like villain worship. Candyman returns to the setting of the first film, the now condemned Cabrini Green housing project, whose previous black community was forced out so new developers could swoop in. Now, Burke is one of its last remaining residents, and setting up Anthony is his last-ditch attempt to prevent it from being gentrified. Now, according to Burke's twisted logic, if it turns out there's another Candyman killer on the loose, people might lose interest in living there and keep their distance. Now, before he takes Anthony and Brianna captive, we're shown a flashback in which a young Burke watches his sister die after summoning the original Candyman, Tony Todd's Daniel Robitaille, who was killed in the 1890s for a romantic relationship he had with a white woman. Now, as a child, Burke also witnessed the police beat to death an innocent man who resembled Candyman. Now, back in the present day, he tells Brianna, "Now we have a witness." Now, Burke knows both these stories intimately, the supernatural bloodshed and the real violence that permeates his community, though he's had to shoulder their trauma alone. To him, they're part of the same legacy and a story that keeps repeating itself throughout history, with different Candyman becoming victims of racial violence and that violence returning from beyond the grave to kill innocent people, like his sister. Now, Burke has, in a way, succumbed to this cynical reality, and to him, perpetuating the urban legend is the only way to shield his neighborhood from a vicious outside world.
I don't want to get creeped out in my new apartment before bed.
Candy. Black people don't need to be summoning.
Don't.
I dare you.
Don't say that.
Anthony, upon being framed by Burke, is shot dead by the Chicago PD in front of Brianna. Now, as the cops intimidate Brianna into telling their version of the story, she summons Candyman by saying his name 5 times. Now, when this spirit first appears, he's surrounded by a swarm of honeybees, the way Tony Todd's Candyman was tortured before being killed, and the hallmark card for Candyman's impending presence. Now, at this point, he still looks and sounds like Anthony. Anthony, who was abducted by the original Candyman as a baby in the first Candyman film, spends most of the movie rediscovering his own history. At first, the myth is just material for his canvas, but it soon begins to consume him, not just artistically, but physically too. As his body starts to rot, he begins to resemble Candyman's grotesque, corpse-like appearance in previous films. Now, whether he likes it or not, he's part of the Candyman story, given he was once kidnapped by the eerie figure as a child to join him and the main protagonist of the first film, Helen Lyle, as his surrogate family. Now, much like Helen was driven by her curiosity of the Candyman myth, so was Anthony, which sees him returning to Cabrini Green, where he lived as a baby. Now, Burke considers this to be perfect symmetry, an inevitable echo in which Burke also plays a part by kidnapping Anthony the way Candyman once did. Now, Burke and Anthony wear similar brown coats, just like several black characters who made up different versions of Candyman over the years, all of whom suffered at the hands of white supremacy. By the end of the film, both Burke and Anthony symbolize the legacy of Candyman and the pain it represents for the people of Cabrini Green. Anthony is even absorbed into this history, and he becomes one with Candyman's vengeful form. After Candyman kills the officers responsible for Anthony's death, he briefly reveals his face to Brianna. We then see, in the place of Anthony's face, a returning Tony Todd in all his terrifying splendor. He instructs her to tell everyone. The new sequel doesn't discard any of the series' mythology, but it builds on it from a new perspective. DaCosta is the first black filmmaker to helm Candyman, and while previous films all centered on Candyman haunting white women, the 2021 movie takes closer aim at the story of his murder and of similar murders over the years and reworks him into a spirit of vengeance. Candyman still takes innocent lives, yes, but when he flays the police officers in the climax, Anthony's voice emanates from behind the swarm. He whispers, "They will say I shed innocent blood. You are far from innocent." Now, these updates to the character don't retroactively change the previous films, in which white filmmakers told stories of white protagonists who were outsiders to the racism in Candyman's past. However, the new movie captures Candyman's actions from a brand new perspective. When Candyman killed a policeman in the second film, Candyman Farewell to the Flesh, there was no thematic connections were drawn between white supremacy and structural police violence. However, a story in which black perspectives are central and in which white supremacist violence is still alive and well, it's a vital realignment of what Candyman is and perhaps what he should have always been. When Candyman tells Brianna to tell everyone, he not only wants his legend to live on and for people to summon him like he did in prior films, but he also wants this version of his story told, one that harkens back to his painful origins. When the film ends, Candyman is neither just Daniel Robitaille, Anthony McCoy, or the other black man that preceded Anthony. He is both of them, all of them in their stories. He's a symbol of all the black victims Burke mentions who died at the hands of white supremacy. And if the series continues under Jordan Peele's Monkey Paw Productions, this is who Candyman is likely to be. The character was always designed to reflect a violent past, but now he embodies the full scope of that history as it bleeds into the present, and he kills with a righteous fury. Candyman is a unique horror icon, and this movie's take on that character is a really good one. I really enjoyed the movie myself. Comment down below, would love to know your thoughts on this and what y'all think. For more on Candyman, be sure to check out our review of the film. And of course, like and subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch.